All right. Well,
Yeah, I
I'll.
look backwards, but I don't.
Hey, I haven't shaved. I did a home haircut. I understand. This is the COVID quarantine struggle at this point for us. So I'm glad to have you all here. So good morning, everyone, attendees, panelists, moderators, everyone. Sabash, thank you for joining DataCon 2020 LA. This again is day 2. Welcome to the Data for Good track. We'll soon be listening to a panel discussion on Thinking Color with several wonderfully talented panelists, which I will go into their bios here shortly. I'm Courtney Fowler, your host, and our co-host today is our data evangelist and co-founder, Sebastian Souza. We'll be moderating chat and Q&A led by Michelle, who is one of our longstanding DataCon volunteers. And during this session today, again, we have several distinguished guests, and we'll be discussing Thinking Color. Let me start off by introducing our moderator, Michelle Emelle. Michelle's a second-year volunteer with DataCon LA. She's passionate about innovations which transform the tech industry, like Code Talk, Tech Hire, and TEALS. She has lived in Los Angeles her entire life and has 2 daughters, enjoys running, biking, and roller skating. She's currently a regional manager at Microsoft and has been a proud supporter of what Sebastian's doing for a number of years. Also, we have Ericka Odom, a webmaster at loudernews.com. Ericka is a tech geek, self-described. She chose to change careers in late 2007. She's discovered passion for front-end development, and getting to the industry has not been easy for her, but her pursuit and passion for it has been worth it. We'll definitely go into that further into this panel discussion. I'd also like to introduce to you all Lima Muhammad. Lima has enjoyed a very long career working with tech in an honest company, and now is a quality assurance analyst. She's responsible for supporting business team by ensuring feature releases and promotions satisfy all specifications and requirements. She looks forward to continue to be an asset to the honest Q&A, DTC, and engineering team, collaborating on many projects to come. Join me in welcome Lima. Also, we have Miesha Robinson. Miesha is a co-founder or CEO and founder of Ucrowd, 21 & Co, MRC, and LevelUp LA. Very distinguished list there, Miesha. She is a serial entrepreneur and tech leader in events industries. She is founder, again, as I said, of Ucrowd LLC, which is a ticketing platform for event curators and attendees to create, discover, and sell tickets online. After earning her bachelor's degree in marketing from Cal State Dominguez Hill, she successfully to advance into the corporate world while simultaneously developing several businesses, organizations to encourage the youth in inner city to explore technology and entrepreneurship. Also, let me introduce you, Linda. Sorry, last name from this, Linda.
Mejia.
Yeah, all right, there you go. Thank you. Linda is a full-time for the city of Los Angeles, and she works with the mayor's office of international affairs, working on sustainable development goals of data reporting platform. So we also have Lori Gay. Lori Gay is president and CEO at Neighborhood Housing Services of Los Angeles County. Since 1984, Lori has been part of NHS and has developed and rehabilitated more than 25,000 houses and commercial units throughout the LA area. This has invested more than $7.1 billion back into some Los Angeles County's toughest neighborhoods. This is a astounding thing because NHS protects more than $2.2 billion of home values annually through a loss mitigation, preservation, and counseling work. Definitely appreciate your work, Lori, with that. Also, I'd like to introduce Tahnee Dixon-Bedward. Tahnee is a software developer at IMT Residential. She has been working with project management company in LA area. She has a background in biotech and has been holding several positions within the field at companies such as Kite Pharma and Gilead Sciences. Tahnee holds a bachelor's in biology from Cal State Northridge, and her love for technology has birthed her further with many years experience in this field. This love has kind of led her into tech. And without further ado, I'll let Michelle kind of continue on with moderation and leading this panel, and I will let it go to the panel discussion for Living in Color.
Thank you. That was a great introduction. I'm so happy that you are going to be our co-host. I want to first start off by thanking Subash This was a vision that I had to allow more voices of color to be in our DataCon conference. And so he so graciously said, why don't you do it? And so that's how I'm here now. So I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, and I appreciate the I want to start off by asking, can everybody hear and see me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Courtney, are you checking the chat?
Looking just fine right now.
Okay, great. So today we're going to be talking about how to think in color and how it relates to data. The first thing I need to do is I need to share the slides with you. So let me start by doing that. Let's try that one. All right, can you guys see the slides? Hello?
Yes.
Everybody see the slides?
Yes.
Okay. So, that's just a list of our panelists and where they're from. And then just a reminder of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be looking at a multi-generational look at how data has affected women of color in particular. And that if we begin to think in color, or actually try and embrace diversity as we are on projects and doing coding, how things could be different. This is the agenda. We're going to have a brief reminder of who we are right before we start the panel discussion. And then we're going to look at ways that you can think in color. But first, I want to let you know how I came up with this brainchild. So in order to do that, there's a little activity that I would love for you to do in the chat. Think about your name and your first name only. And in the chat, if you could, just if you know the meaning of your name, write your first name and then what your name means or who you were named after. So for instance, for me, my name is Michelle, and I was named after the Beatles song, Miesha, My Belle. So take a few moments to do that. And then ponder about why I have Barack Obama on this slide. So just take a few moments to do that. I couldn't see the chat.
We've got a couple of responses coming through the chat right now.
Okay.
Got DJ named after DJ Tanner from Full House.
Okay.
Cindy named after her mother's OBGYN.
Oh, that's precious.
Got Mary for Mary Magdalena. Nicole for Nicole Kidman. I threw my name in there for Courtney as court dweller because that's what my parents looked at and they wanted me to become a lawyer. Did not happen.
Pretty good. Thank you for sharing that. And so then why is Barack Obama in this picture? Again, answer in the chat if you gather to think why we would think about the meaning of a name and how just that name might affect you. Any takers, Courtney?
Threw my head into there. People think I'm a woman most times.
Oh, no, the question was, why do you think Barack Obama is on this slide regarding his name?
Oh, my apologies. I didn't actually.
Why do you think Barack
No
Obama?
responses in the chat actually. So trying to.
Hey guys, sorry, is there an issue?
It's filling a question right now. I don't think we have a response yet. So.
Well, what we're going to be talking about today is the data point.
Michelle, are you there? It looks like you cut out.
Technology, abolitionist tools for the new Gen Code. And in the very first chapter, this data scientist is talking about a book that I really loved several years ago called Freakonomics. In the chat, if you can, put a 1 if you remember reading that book or you've heard people talk about that book. There's a really incredible section of the book that talks about names and how social norms are geared around people's names. And so in Dr. Benjamin's book, she makes the prediction that if there are not more people of color, if we don't start to think in color, the programming that we're doing is also going to be biased. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. That is what the actual panel is going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about ways that data has been used to affect, sometimes in a positive way, sometimes in a negative way, but definitely an idea or an opportunity for change. And that's what we're really looking for, that there's this opportunity to transform the tech society. You'll listen to our narratives, you'll hear our voices today, but there's going to be a call to action at the end about what can we do to transform these norms. All right, so the panel is actually broken up into 2 sections. There's kind of the before the digital data age, and we want to kind of talk about the pen and paper and how things occurred. And so on that panel, it's going to be myself and Lori and Miesha. That's the first couple of minutes, and we're going to answer some questions. And then we're going to transition to after the digital age, and that's when you're going to hear from the rest of our panel. So I think that it would be okay for you to, we'll just show you the panelists right now. We'll just show you the 3 panelists that will be presenting. So Lori, Miesha, and myself will be on video, and the rest of you can be off video so you can relax, if that's okay. And I'm gonna stop it. Okay, all right, are we here? Okay.
We are here.
Miesha, okay. So You guys have any questions? I'm going to ask the questions again. So, and let's just go in alphabetical order. Lori, Lori, you can go first. Lori, you can go first. I'm forgetting my alphabets this morning. Tell us how data before the digital age, how was your name or any form of data used? So we're talking about how do people look at your resume before this digital age?
Yeah, so I thank you. I want to, I'm in the housing business. So we build it, fix it, sell it, lend on it, right? All affordable. We're known as the region's largest affordable homeownership provider. So a lot of success and excitement around that. So before digital stuff, I'm still one of those kids. I was great at administrative stuff and select 3 typewriters. We put them in the trash. We put them in the trash when computers came around. But we learned how to present ourselves. And so the one thing I wanted to mention today is about impact and how we frame ourselves in the past can apply to today, but certainly the way we did it in the business, kind of business I'm in, is I couldn't get, a foot in the door with the things I had passion around initially. But what I did do was learn how to reframe myself on paper and in print so that people adapted to the passions I have in housing, community development, making sure people have access without discrimination. So I took off my resume some of my Black stuff that I was very excited about and reframed it around the technical aspects of housing and the impact I'd had there first as an intern and then as a professional person. And then I started adding any race work that was colorful back into my resume after several years of being in my post. And the reason for that was there's been so much race discrimination and property discrimination in the housing district that I knew I wouldn't get in the door. It wasn't me being ashamed of being a person of color at all. It was I have to get in there. And so I did that. And as people met me and certainly the work of NHS over time, it's all about people of color. 94% of our clients are people of color. And we speak in 6 to 10 languages at any point. And so I think that it was understanding context. Today's space gives much more room to be who you are right away. And so I think that's one of the biggest differences that I saw, Michelle, was that the adaptation to accept people was not as visible with pen and paper in the past and with print mediums. Everything was negative. And people would decide before you got there, they weren't going to sell you the house if they knew what you looked like. They would decide that if you were Black in particular, remember redlining, right? Jim Crow, housing discrimination, no matter what the law said. And it still goes on today. So that's my quick story.
Thank you for sharing, Lori. Miesha,
Hi, everyone. For me, I'm actually a millennial, so I'm a little younger, but however, just coming from the corporate world and looking at how things have changed over the last decade, and how hiring practice have definitely changed over time. But one thing that remains is the power of the resume. And like Lori said before, there's a point in time where sometimes we tend to whiten our resumes, changing our names, taking anything away that is quote unquote Black, maybe the school that you're going to, maybe any organizations that you've been a part of, that you kind of take the name away to let them know that, hey, I want to be seen for my talents and not for the race that I am. However, the discrimination continues to run rapid in the hiring practices continuously. And I think with that, people have definitely adjusted different things on the resume and how they go to the interviews and conduct themselves. One thing we always talk about is code switching as well. And now that plays a definite role in the hiring practices, especially when you're going for new positions. For me, if I share a quick story about myself, one thing that I've done before is not only take the Black organizations off of my resume, but I also changed my name a few times on a resume so it won't sound as ethnic. So they won't immediately identify me as someone of color. So I would change it to my middle name. My middle name is Denise. So I'll go by Denise Robinson instead of Miesha Denise Robinson sometimes. And I've gotten more interviews by changing my name and not listing my ethnicity. And I've seen that over time continuously be a factor in a lot of young people, especially in the corporate world, when I was doing the hiring practice and seeing them come into the interviews and maybe changing their name, not listing their ethnicity as something that they want to be really held as something important on their resume. They want it to shine as far as their talents and skills. So I think that is one thing that people continuously do. And even though the time has changed to more of a digital era, those practices are still in play now.
For me, I have to agree with you. I graduated from Howard University, which is a historically Black university. And I was told at one point I should probably take that off my resume, depending on what field I'd like to go into. So ladies, we only have, I'm going to ask you one more question. And that is, who have been your mentors? And in particular, if you could think about male mentors versus female mentors, if you have both or only one, because I think that's a part of the Think in Color, right? Who we are as our sex, our gender.
For a Black woman in tech, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, now.
Okay, Black woman in tech, Lori Mitchell, which has been an amazing mentor to me. She's a Black woman. She's well-informed for technology. She's great with socializing. And I took so much away from her as far as like all the lessons that she have taught me throughout my journey of going through entrepreneurship as well as my professional life. And I always look to her for something.
Very good. And Lori told me to volunteer a year ago for DataCon LA. So I'm here because of Lori, yes.
Oh, really?
Lori Mitchell.
Like what? And so I would say that it's been my peers have been my mentors. Community developers are a pretty different breed because we deal with what's wrong in the neighborhood and we try to fix it. And
Right.
what's wrong, what's challenged, what is the challenge for a family each day and being able to build its wealth and, you know, be strong, and we try to fix it. And so for my 30 plus years in the business now, it's been my peers, others in cities across the country and some global, to see what they're doing, right, and replicate it and cut and paste so we don't have to start from scratch. So there's no one person. I'd say inspirations, though, have certainly been all the people we've all read about from Martin Luther King on. And people don't get even his march, the March on Washington, when he spoke, he was talking in financial terms in half of that speech, saying that the nation has given us a blank check. We don't have the promissory note in the Constitution and the Emancipation Proclamation that we were promised. And we have to change that. That's still true, Michelle, all these years later, right? So we find inspiration in community development from great leaders who spoke truth to power. What did Frederick Douglass say? Power never concedes without a demand. It never has, and it never will.
I just wanted to say that one of my mentors was our CEO of the company that I worked for. So mentors come in all shapes and sizes. He was not a man of color, but he believed in me, and I was the second in charge in our IT department. So there are ways for you to overcome some of the things that are written in your resume when someone is thinking in color. I would say that he was, although he wasn't a person of color, he was thinking in color. All right, thank you, ladies. All right, next panelist. Now we're going to talk about what's happening with, now that we have all of these digital tools to help us certainly makes our jobs easier, and we're able to get things done faster. But yeah, so I want to talk to Linda and Ericka and Miesha and Lori. We'll see you in a little while. There we go. Bye-bye. Thank you. I can't see everybody. Hey, ladies. So let's go in alphabetical order by your name again. Ericka, you want to start with the same question than the other panelists. Now that we have this digital age, how has data been used to limit or enhance your success? I can't hear you. Courtney, you can't hear Ericka.
I've unmuted her. I don't think it's on our end. I made sure that was unchecked.
Oh, okay. So she's getting it done.
Can you hear me now?
Good.
Ericka,
Can you hear me?
we still can't hear you.
Okay.
It's coming in very faint, Ericka. Maybe increase the volume.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yep.
Yeah.
Good old-fashioned volume control. Sorry. All right, thank you for having me. My name is Ericka Odom. Let's see. So how has data been used to, Michelle, was that kind of make things difficult or be challenging for me in this age? Is that the question?
Yeah, how's it been a hindrance or a help? I think at some point you mentioned that sometimes the data points have been helpful.
You know, I think it's kind of hard to know for certain. You know, there are times when it seems, you know, in terms of my own speculation. In the digital age, what I do find as a person of color, and specifically African American, this past summer, with everything going on, the injustices, the protests, with a lot of wounds being brought to the forefront at a time where there's a lot of adversity going on. One of the things that I have found is a huge topic for me. I'm most visible on LinkedIn, and I see the different types of posts that go through all day, and as a person of color and a professional in the tech industry, an industry which touts diversity, I find myself feeling a little bit more like I want to see the walk with the talk from the tech industry more. And I find myself really kind of being worried about what I post, you know, in the digital age more, in terms of, as Miesha was sharing about the things she's been passionate about, having to, you know, take some of that off, some of the things you support, and worry of being too visible in terms of your culture, who that might turn off, which is amazing that we even have to think about that. So because a lot of people use digital avenues now, such as LinkedIn and Indeed, you know, the things that you write, the things you post, which may not even be inflammatory, but something you like might be used against you. And in terms of hiring practices, when people are using bots and automated systems to review, whether it be your social media posts or your electronically submitted resume, you know, they're filtering for particular words. And as you mentioned, biases in those who do the programming leak into these systems. And so as a person of color trying to get in an industry like tech, which is very competitive, there's a lot of talent out there in this industry. There are a lot of people transitioning as we not move into a future. The future has arrived, it's here, and it's been here. So a lot of us are reassessing our lives and transitioning. And what I find, and I think many African Americans can relate, and I'm sure that many people from other cultures can relate, maybe to a different degree, but I feel like I have to put a lot of energy into thinking about data points. And I feel that I have to expend energy on making sure I select the right cultural words. My name, Ericka Odom, is a very bland name. There's nothing distinct that stands out culturally, but I've experienced the milliseconds of unspoken body language when I show up for an interview, or whether it be on Zoom or in person. Those things you've been trained to recognize. That moment of a person catching themselves with that, oh, I didn't know. that, and those are things that some people will question. I've learned at my age not to question myself on matters like that. But the way I have been affected is I do feel that there is a container of energy that I have a little jar that gets used, that energy gets used for the things to prepare myself, whether it be that millisecond of look where I'm like, that person didn't know I was going to be full of melanin. Those types of things have become a part of life. And in this generation, I accept that they're a part of life, but I do hope that in the future, all of us being aware and cognizant and understanding that these types of biases exist and they're unjust, that we can continue to work to minimize them. I hope that answers the question. I feel like I went on too long.
That my name is not necessarily gives away my culture at all, but yeah, I've had that look, so I definitely know what you mean. Lima?
Hi, I am Lima Muhammad, and so my name kind of right there tells you some of the stuff that I have experienced. And just to actually be open and honest, my full name is Muslima, but I have used Lima for a decade, maybe a decade or more. And I'm about 3 years in tech, coming from the entertainment industry, front camera and back camera. I have had many times walking into interviews or, auditions or anything like that. And it was Muslima Muhammad. And I walk in and they were like, oh, we thought a guy was going to walk in and an Arab guy was going to walk in. And so when I walk in, they're like, we don't even have your sizes. We don't even have your costume ready because we just thought something totally different. And so I faced that, several times. And then when I was in the entertainment industry, moving up in the industry, you're playing with big money. And so playing with big money, your name carries weight. And so I had quite a bit of rejection and things like that. And after a while, it just was kind of like, what do I do next? And, that bubble for STEM has always been over my head because I also was a math and science teacher straight out of college. And I just would always see in tech people who shared my name. And I said, well, maybe this is what I should do because then maybe the rejection would be less. The data for that name is in tech, I would say, is associated with those who are smart. If you think about Mohammeds or other people who are from other countries with those names, they're like, oh, they must be an engineer. They must be this. And I said, maybe I'll use my name to its advantage. And so I'm in tech. I work as a quality assurance analyst on the engineering team for the Honest company. And it's been amazing. And it's funny that I don't face those name issues that come up with who is this person? You know, is she going to come in here and do something with us, or is he going to come in here and do something? It's like, oh, she's coming in, she's tech, she must be smart. And you know, for me, I use that that part to my advantage. And also, you know, as Ericka has stated, and also Miesha has stated, I went to a predominantly white university for my MBA and also my undergrad, but I joined a Black sorority. And so as a member of Delta Sigma Theta, I wear that proudly and I put it on my resume. And I did have people question, what kind of sorority is that? Oh, is that one of those key sororities? Is that one of those honor sororities? And I said, no, it's a predominantly Black historic sorority. And we are based on community service, education, and scholarship, you know. And there was moments when I said, maybe I should remove it, because then it surrounds questions about what is a Black sorority different than a white sorority? And I'm like, I mean, do you really want me to go into that conversation? You know, and so for me, there have been moments where the code switch happens, you know, but it also just, you have to start thinking about how strong your beliefs are and what you hold as value. And then those things will kind of guide your way in making decisions and not having to code switch, you know, or having to deal with those microaggressions that happen when you're in industries where you do show up in the room and 90% of the time you're the only Black or African American person or a woman. And then I also deal with, you're the only woman of Islamic faith, you know, who's a Muslim. And so, you know, I face those challenges as well. But for me, I think over the last, you know, 5 years, I wear it proudly, you know, even coming in with hair wraps on and, you know, scars, people are like, you know, but it's an opportunity for discussion and dialogue. And I think as long as I am comfortable in my own skin, which I am, and my own faith, which I am, it all works out.
Very good. Thank you, Lima. I'm still here. I got a side message that my video and my voice went in, so I turned the video off, but I'm still here, guys. Thank you so much, Lima. Linda, you ready? How has data affected you in a successful way, or in a way that makes you want to transform your life?
All right, so my name is Linda Ismar, and so I was born in Colombia, and it's very common in Colombia that you go by your middle name. So my family and my friends all call me Ismar, but on my LinkedIn and right here, any like professional setting, or on my resume, I definitely use Linda. Not only does it make it easier for everyone to pronounce, but I think it definitely ties into like AI algorithms, like filtering out that type of yeah, you're just based off your name. I wanted to touch on that because I've been reading a lot about that, and I think that it's not necessarily that in tech the engineers are creating biased algorithms. I think that the data that the algorithms are learning is biased and like unintentionally almost. So if it's seeing that most successful engineers are white, Asian, and predominantly male, it's gonna learn that like only that demographic is going to succeed in that field. So I think that's definitely made my job search tougher, because I definitely think my resume is probably getting filtered out in a lot of settings because of that. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's all I had to say about that. And then
and Linda, just one other thing. How did you get your job at, can you hear me? How did you get the job that you currently have?
So I was a tech hire fellow and I went to DataCon last year. And I reached out to one of the job posts that was posted on DataCon for the working for the mayor's office. And yeah, they reached out and I was able to get that. And I thought it was funny when you asked who your like mentors were, because I've definitely noticed that like that throughout my professional career, like beyond tech, I've only been hired by women.
Very good point.
Yeah, I think it's just like people relate to, they want to see people like you in your positions, and if we don't change how the hiring process, or like more people that look like you in those leadership positions, it's not, yeah, that's why this is so important.
Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you. And next, how are you? Last but not least. I can't, yeah, you're off mute.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, very good. I'd love for you to talk about tech hire also when you get a chance. But the question again is, how has data been a hindrance or success for you?
Okay, so I could speak to my experience. In my experience, I feel as though maybe I have escaped that form of bias in terms of AI, because when you touch on hiring practices per se, my name is Tahnee Dixon-Bedward. And so I'm from Jamaica. And so Jamaica is a former British colony. And basically my last name ends up being British or English. So when you say it, it's not necessarily a clear indication of my race. So what I found is, prior to moving into tech, my job was more labor intensive. I was working in cell culture research. And so I feel as though I didn't experience bias, maybe because it was more labor intensive, and maybe because of my name not sounding, like my race, if that makes sense. But when you move into the tech scene, and that you see that you are demanding a higher level of expertise, there's where I see, okay, like Ericka said, that subtle realization of, oh, you're a woman of color, upon arriving at the in-person interview. So let's say a hiring manager has, my resume, I don't sound like my race. And then on the phone, I don't necessarily sound Black, because there is that stereotype as well. So I've seen where in person, I get that little look. But I definitely think that it is important to think in color, because we need to address some of those biases. Artificial intelligence, it mimics human intelligence. And so it's only natural that the thought patterns and the behaviors of the group of individuals building the machine or the system is going to be reflected. So I think that if you're a company and you are offering a service to the global market, then the audience, should be represented, or your services should be tailored towards not just one group of individuals, but all. Because what we are seeing today is the outcome of, the culmination of work based largely on one body of thought. But if more people of color are in the boardrooms, and they're in the development teams, and they're VPs, then we're able to kind of change that narrative. So I do think that it is important, as I said, to think in color. Also because brilliant minds, they're not exclusive to one group of people, and brilliant shouldn't be tailored to just one group of people. So.
Thank you so much. That was really great. What program did you come from?
So I'm from Tech Hire as well, which also helped me to kind of bridge the gap to tech. So I heard about the program years before I actually started, and then I wasn't able to complete it. And then, I got an email and then signed up, and it's been a great experience, the mentorship and everything. And just having that, access where it wouldn't have been provided otherwise was amazing. So we need more programs like Tech Hire,
There you
Black Girl, all of that.
go. Ericka, what program are you from? What program are you from?
I'm a graduate of Code Talk, which is a program that sprang from your minds.
You weren't supposed to say that.
Yes, I'm a very grateful graduate of Code Talk out of Venice, California, St. Joe State Center.
Thank you. Lima, what program are you from?
I'm from the same program, Code Talk. I'm a graduate, I think the session after Ericka. And it's funny that I feel like I follow in her footsteps with everything. She doesn't think she's a mentor towards me, but she is. She was a graduate before me, and then she was at the Honest Company, and now I'm at the Honest Company. So I definitely marvel at her accomplishments and her trajectory and her journey. And it's just very truth-telling that I tend to follow in her footsteps with a lot of stuff that she does. So, I definitely look to her as being one of the mentors that kind of has helped me and been a support for me to kind of just keep going in tech.
You're super sweet and generous.
Yeah.
Thank you, panelists. I'm going to go back to the slides now and kind of sum up what we mean by think in color, and then we'll probably take some questions. This one. Okay, so again, you may not be able to see, I hope you can hear me. Can someone tell me if you can hear me okay?
All clear.
Thank you. So when we talk about ways to think in color, I think that the panelists showed you that there's some ways that we are limited, there are ways that our lives are being enhanced. But it starts by first hiring and listening to us. When we get on the team and we talk about biases, you have to allow us to have that open door, that it's okay to talk about those things. In everything that you do, embrace differences. Our paths are very different. Some people have come from nonprofits to for-profits. Some people have come from for-profits to nonprofits. Some people, especially women, some people who have chosen opportunities based on what was best for their families. And so I think that by just embracing differences after you hire us, and also when you're coding and looking at these AI algorithms, that there's something there, that every thing can't be the same. I love what Linda said. Several of the panelists said that there has to be different people making these decisions. And then finally, support CS, Computer Science for All initiatives. You heard about several of the organizations that I'm passionate about. And the next slide, I'll also talk about that a little bit more. And then I highly, if you, this wasn't as technical as you need for a reason, I highly recommend you reading Dr. Benjamin's book, Race to Technology, an abolitionist tool for the new Jim Code. It is an amazing read, and she has real action items for how we can transform this industry. And then finally, I was thinking in color when I created Code Talk, when I worked for Tech Hire LA, and now I work for the TEALS program for Microsoft. These slides will be shared with you. Reach out to these organizations. You see the product of what a wonderful job these types of organizations can do for the tech industry. In every case, these computer science and programming boot camps are reaching out to are thinking in color. They are for either in the case of the Code Talk, where it's just for women, Tech Hire, which, you know, it's not around anymore, but it would be great if one of you had the ambition to start a Code Talk. Tech Hire was for everyone. And then the TEALS program that Microsoft offers, they are always looking for industry volunteers and or teachers who want to do something different. If you are teaching math, but you think that you could teach computer science, the TEALS program will train you. And then finally, just best wishes on your journey to think in color. And then we'll take any questions. I'll stop sharing.
So there are no questions posted to the Q&A. Nothing in the chat. So I guess, Michelle, do you have anything that you may still want to kind of pick your brains or your panelists? In lieu of any questions not being in the HOVA app, I don't see anything that had been posted during the discussion. So
okay.
This could either be another 30 minutes of blank air, which I'm pretty sure we can continue talking on for hours about this. It's been a very informative talk, especially for me being a man, unfortunately man of color, but still, like, I do not understand everything that women go through on a daily basis. So,
oh, that's sweet.
I would love to hear more. If you guys have any other discussion topics to go, still have another 30 minutes or so. So I will let you guys free run on that if you'd like to.
I did have more questions. Okay, you guys want to answer the other questions? Okay, so we could all go around and ask the question, either what type of boss do you like, or what type of boss you are? Well, in alphabetical order. Can't hear you. Linda, are you talking? No.
Am I going?
Mm-hmm. I thought you were talking.
What kind of boss? Not a boss yet in anything. So, I think someone that lets me like have a say in things.
Mm-hmm.
Just, yeah, specifically for this, like, you have your life experience gives you a different perspective than someone else in the room. So it's definitely something I look for in management, someone that's gonna let me have a say in how things are done, or like share my ideas, and just an open space where I can share my ideas and my input based on my own life experiences. Yeah.
Sounds good. Anybody else want to answer that question?
I can go. No, I'm not a managerial position yet, but that is my trajectory to be a TPM, a technical project manager. And I guess thinking because I have an MBA in project management, and I have the educational background, but I don't have the experience background in the workforce. But I do have, I have had managers. And I think one thing that I would like to see and that I would definitely implement as a manager is giving people the opportunity, be it that they're new to the industry or not, giving them an opportunity to grow and to learn and be patient with them. There takes a lot of compassion for someone to join any industry. And I think as a manager, giving them just overemphasizing kindness, that goes a long way. And then also being very transparent and trustworthy. Those things as a manager, when your employees that you are managing have that opportunity to see that you are someone who is transparent and you are someone who exemplifies kindness and compassion, there's so much room for them to grow. And, you know, I know some people do or like to micromanage. Worst thing ever to do to an employee, to micromanage them. You know, if you hire them because you trust them and let them keep that trust. You know, coming in and saying, oh, you have to earn my trust. I don't think that's, in my opinion, the right way to be a manager. You give the trust automatically, they lose it or they keep it. You know, and when an employee comes in knowing that you automatically trust them, you're not worried about, did you take an hour lunch? Did you take a 30, you know, you're not worried about any of that because you trust them. Then I think you would have more productivity from that employee. And that employee will become a champion for your organization and for you as a manager. So those are big things for me, is that, you know, showing compassion and kindness and giving people room to grow.
Thank you, Lima. Courtney actually does have some questions for us.
Sure do. Actually, I appreciate Karen. Got a couple of them from her. First one is, can you talk about the overall impact through these projects, Code Talk and Tech Hire?
Well, I'll start with, it was really a small idea that turned into I didn't even realize the impact that it was going to have. And I think that that's really important for people to understand when you start to think about how you want to be in the world. I was simply talking to a friend about there aren't that many women in programming, and having just started my own career in programming, finding out that it's not that difficult, right? I was a math teacher. I taught algebra and geometry, and found coding was similar to solving proofs. And I just really wanted to share that opportunity. And I knew that and I was able to learn in a supportive environment. So that was really important to me. And so I think the ladies on the panel can speak to, for Tech Hire, although it was a boot camp, they can tell you that it wasn't an ordinary boot camp. And then for Code Talk, because it was at St. Joseph Center, there are a lot of services available. So I'll let them tell you how it's been impactful for them.
All right, I guess I'll go ahead. So very, very impactful, because, you know, when you're when you're labeled as a minority, just that alone, it can have a psychological impact on you. You know, you're like, okay, my life chances are less than, you know, the other person. But if you believe in yourself, then, you know that you're able to overcome all of that. And especially if you come from a household that values education, then even more are you able to, you know, reach and achieve all those goals. So Tech Hire, you know, I found out about it just by researching online, because I knew that I wanted more for myself. You know, I have a bachelor's degree in biology. I was in biotech for about 4 years, but it wasn't my passion. And I knew that I could just do something more and more fitting to my personality. So Tech Hire I really think it came about to kind of thrust people of color with the intelligence and with the skills even to get into those roles and to kind of fill in the gaps, because you know, as we've seen, a lot of developers, they're not necessarily filled with people of color on their teams, and so this is helping that, and it's pushing that forward. And for me, it provided the necessary funding to secure the knowledge. And the mentorship was amazing, you know, checking up on you, helping with resumes, you know, helping with even public speaking, doing, you know, solving problems in front of other soon-to-be developers. So it was just very impactful, and it was kind of that push, you know, towards success. And so I'm very grateful for an opportunity as such. So.
And I just want to add that both of those programs they were free to the participants. And in the opportunity for Code Talk, at the end of the program, you got your own laptop. This one.
Yeah, briefly, I'll just toss in there, you know, in terms of wanting to know how these programs, their impact, they're very far-reaching. Code Talk, I think the miraculous thing about Code Talk is that its purpose is to you know, the motto is change the trajectory of your life. Sorry about the dog. And excuse me. Sorry. In terms of taking people under extraordinary circumstances, I had classmates that were living in their car, people who are dealing with homelessness. Code Talk takes candidates from a wide range in life, but their focus is individuals who seem to really be out of the loop of potentially having the possibility to get an education and to bridge that gap between where they are and with the potential of connecting with a technical career, or even just becoming, having the ability to work again by going through a program like Code Talk and learning a skill. So it's sponsored by Snap, Snap Inc. And these types of programs, and you have speakers from all over the tech industry in Southern California who volunteer their time. I would say one of the things that we do need more of are internships, paid internships. And speaking to what Lima said about patience and compassion, if you really are interested in thinking in color or having an impact with teams, whether it be in data or whatever it is, it's about walking the talk. And in these industries, we've been talking for a long time about inclusiveness. And it isn't that hard to transition to inclusiveness. You just have to do it. And you have to check yourself. You have to be ready to confront whatever might be in you, whatever might be in your organization, and just wash it out. And what that means is some of the things we've discussed today about, you know, from our experience, seeing that look in the person's eyes when we show up, you know, with a particular name or color. Be ready for that in yourself, challenge it, and as it's been said here, listen to us and be ready to move into that new space. And these types of organizations have done a lot of the work for people. You just need to reach out to them. They have the talent ready there.
Michelle, we can't hear you.
Anybody else want to speak on the impact of these kind of programs? Go ahead, Lori.
I guess I wanted to kind of chime in as one of the older women on the panel. And I'm not in the tech industry, but I'm a data wonk. I can remember your social security number and forget what day it is. I'm that person. I want to also challenge people to think about things using your tech in spaces that aren't necessarily normal. And so in our case, I'll say, you know, unashamedly, we're going to start looking for an MIS director. So I have to call Michelle and ask what I'm doing. But I think we use data all the time, millions of data points, because we are a community development lender. So people tell us everything. How do we make sure that stays private? How do we make sure we compile data, particularly race and demography, right, in a way that puts the best picture forward for families of color in neighborhoods that aren't always fun in people's minds? How do we change the perception by the way we present? And so I think for us in my sector, we're looking for smart people who all the time, internships throughout, fellowships, all that, because once they come out of school or programming, how do they apply it? And so we live in a world of statistics every day, a world of financial analysis every day. And so we need this sector to kind of broaden. Now, if you want to just sit behind the computer in a corner, that's your prerogative. But what I'm suggesting is we need you in all sectors of society to be able to make sure that we think in color in the right way and that we adequately present information so that capital starts to flow to our families and our communities. And so I want to encourage people about that and to encourage, you know, this kind of applying yourself, right? And whether you're beginning, in the middle, hoping to be a manager, to some sectors that might not be something you'd normally consider. And if I hadn't learned how to use data to help shape and impact the world 30 years ago when I got in the business of housing, our company wouldn't be worth billions today, right? We wouldn't be able to impact the kind of money we do now or to draw attention to it. And now in a time where we're all talking about race, unfortunately, during a pandemic, I think it gives us a unique opportunity to shape the narrative. Thanks.
Anyone else chime in? Do we have another question?
Yes, there was another question, Michelle.
Yes, there was a question.
Oh, wait.
So, one moment. And the question is, hire and listen to us. How can we amplify that? Shout it louder. Thank you again, Karen, for that question.
So I have a question. This is Subhashya. Thank you once again to all of you for joining us. And I posted this in the Q&A. I just want to bring it up. It's more about, you know, today we have a lot of AI, machine learning programs and models. And I actually work in a university, Cal State University. And one of the things they were thinking about, they haven't implemented it, was they wanted to look at how they can increase graduation rates of students. And they were looking at using AI models to identify, you know, uh, basically to use facial recognition to identify, you know, what's impacting students one way or the other, and how they could. But the reason they didn't put it out is because they were finding that it would be biased in terms of certain categories of people would be more negatively impacted by that. By basically, a program would say that uh, this set of people are now going to be graduating, and they felt that it could be because of the bias, because maybe of color, race, etc. And to me, that's one thing that's very important, is how do we kind of neutralize that base? How can we say make these programs more neutral so it doesn't look at color, and just because someone is African American or Caucasian, it shouldn't use that as a basis to identify if one person is more successful than the other. And you think about these kind of things, and it's probably going to come up more now that AI or machine learning is going to be more and more out there with different things that's happening. How do you think something like this can be thought about so that we can build these models so that they're more race independent, more thinking about the base of the problem versus, and maybe some of that bias is because of the way people program it, the way the kind of training sets they provide, but kind of curious about your thoughts. Sorry, it may be too technical. I just was kind of putting it out earlier.
I think piggybacking on something Linda said earlier in her answer, which was that a lot of these systems are the data that we're feeding the systems, the data that exists. And somebody else said earlier about it's a reflection of us as human beings. And so there has to be a conscious effort, when you decide that you want to lose weight, you have to make it, or you want to start an exercise program, or you want to start a new habit. It takes a lot of consciousness. You have to decide you want to do it and then do all the things that makes that happen. And again, I go back to, we talk a lot about diversity and how to do it. I think we have everything we need in society to know how to do it. We have to do it. Like, that's where we're stuck. We have to move. I don't think there's any more data we need. There's no more collection. We have it all. We know what we're doing. We have to be brave enough, all of us together, to just push. And, like Courtney, even putting out there, that moment of, as a man, I know I don't know what goes on every day. These little types of things, instead of the microaggressions in life, we have more of these micro moments in which we expand ourselves. That's how easy it is to start. These little micro moments, hiring more people of color. I think a lot of organizations will need to accept that if you want to be diverse, something that Lima said earlier with the kindness and the patience, as a society, we have to decide that we're going to compensate for some of the gaps because it's worth the long-term investment. Engineering teams have to decide, not just talk it amongst themselves, a group of all men that may not have any men of color. If you have people, if you break bread in your personal life, with people of color, it has to become something when you go to work, you say, oh, that's not enough. I want to start a group. Don't get the consulting company full of people of color that need to come in. We all have the ability. Just in your question, Subash, you show that you are thinking about it. You may not be African American or Latino, you're a man of color. You yourself go in a group and say, you know what? I think we need a little bit of diversity training amongst ourselves. You don't have to wait for it to be someone who's African American. And that's what we need more of. All of us, we need to step off the ledge. We have all the tools. And in this movement this summer, one of the things that has been said, allies, 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 it's a phrase. And what it means is that just because something doesn't impact you doesn't mean you can't be a leader in pushing the boundaries on that topic. And goes for me too. All of us, we look at the areas, there are so many areas, and we all simply need to push together and push outside of our comfort zones, but it doesn't have to be something that impacts us directly for us to wait. Just push out and do it.
I wanted to also answer Sebastian's question. And I think what is missing, because like Ericka said, the data is already there. What's missing is the leadership. Is like your leadership teams, your boardrooms. We are not in those boardrooms. We're not making those decisions. Upper management, I'm talking about CEOs, CIOs, CFOs, and especially CIOs when you're talking about tech. If in those meetings, in those rooms, we're not represented, then the data is not going to be kind to us. Face recognition is going to be something that's going to be on the campus of Northridge University. And that's going to be the determining rate. Are people graduating based on face recognition? But if you have people in those rooms where you're talking about board members, board of directors, leadership teams, executive directors, vice presidents, if they look like what the data is reflecting, then you won't have a lot of those issues. And I think that is, I remember, I think it was this past summer, or maybe, yes, that was definitely this summer, where Serena Williams' husband, I just call her husband because I can't remember his name, Tahnee something. He stepped down from Reddit, from his board seat. And he said, do not put anybody in that seat unless it is an African-American person. And I just thought that that was very honorable and very admirable, because it's like, yeah, sometimes we don't have those opportunities for those doors to sit on boards, to be open, to be board members on companies, Fortune 500s and things like that. And for him to step down and say, I don't want that seat to be filled with anybody but this particular person, it's because it's needed. It's needed to have those people in the rooms that's making the decisions. If we're not in the rooms making the decisions, we're not going to be the ones receiving the benefits. And I think it definitely has to be an equal playing field. And I mean, that's hard, but when you talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity, you have to make room for those who've had just years of trying to put their foot in the door and keep up.
I would also add that you need to be in place. So we talk about certain acronyms in the business of community, certainly, and finance, where we are, and that it means you're available, you're accessible, you're ready to go. It's put me in, coach. Can you say that about yourself, right? So that when the door opens, you're ready to go. And then be in places to connect with people. So for example, today we're doing a community cleanup in Compton while I'm on this call at our Center for Sustainable Communities. Again, shameless plugs, join in. Don't miss the opportunity to work with CEOs who are people of color, right? And figure out some of those spaces, folks, and get in here because we're looking for you. And so I would suggest there's a lot of open doors, but we close our minds sometimes to opportunity. And then if you're not broadening your reach, the scale of what you're willing to look at to apply yourself, you can miss it. And so I'm going to talk like that because I can honestly say that I was looking for a young Black person who was at graduate level or beyond to fill a fellow position. And people of all other races applied in 2 full rounds, Michelle, that I advertised, 2. And I nicely said to each one, it's called the Black Community Developers Group for a reason. You know, I didn't want to be like that, but in the end, we were trying to reach into our communities, and it took a minute, right? None of the people that applied were data people. And so maybe I need to revamp my ad. So there's thousands of me out there, is my point to you today, that are looking for people of color to be able to influence our thinking and our impact. And I want to encourage you, that's my job, I think, on this panel, that there's room at the table for you.
Yeah, I think, thank you.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry. I wanted to add that, like,
Linda's going to be our last.
sorry, yeah, I wanted to add that, regards to his question, I think that the tech world just needs to stop looking at machine learning and like algorithms as like the ultimate truth, because it'll never be an accurate representation of like society. So you can't make a machine like make all these decisions based on this data that's not an accurate representation of our world. So yeah, yeah, that's it. And when you were saying about Serena Williams' husband, in my personal experience working at the mayor's office, I know that the mayor picked the deputy mayor who I was working under to be a woman, because that's how you make a difference. That's how you catch up. Like, that's how you catch up society in a way that if like the data sets being fed in are finally and like starting to catch up with with society. Yeah, and in regards to like college, for example, again, my own personal experience, I majored in business, and as a freshman I went to the engineering school. So I'm a first generation college graduate. So I didn't really know what major to pick going into college. Like, it was just really confusing for me. So that's why I'm so grateful for Tech Hire, because I didn't get a chance to answer a question before. It opened that door for me. Like, coding is possible for you and you can enter this field. And I think that was a problem at my university, not really like pushing that for like a Latino first generation like college student. So I think, yeah, like you just need to catch up the systems from like a human level before you start relying on AI and machine learning.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, I definitely think what you guys said is quite true. And I think Lori, what you mentioned is, I think important point is, having not just for programming, I think even data. I think you mentioned it's hard to find people of color in data, and maybe that's a good pivot is maybe data should be also a foundational training, so we can get more people of color in these kind of positions, so that they can help us in building these programs which are more neutral versus looking at it from one perspective or the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Subhash. I think that is going to bring us to the end. And I'm going to make sure we don't have any more questions. Courtney?
There's one last question. We have time we got about 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
11:30. So I think the last question we had was, how do you evaluate a potential employer culture as related to diversity and inclusion during the job search process? To the panel.
I've been a HR director before, and so it really is a matter of looking at all possibilities. A blind search, taking off the names of the resumes, or however whatever, if you're using a software program, take the names off, take out where they live, and just look at everything below the name and the address, right? Because I think that has helped me to focus then on just the skill set and bringing in the most competent people. So that's just one of the things I do. That's why I wanted to talk about this label, a name, and how it can be used in a variety of ways. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I certainly think skills matter, and we've done a lot of that, Michelle, like you're mentioning, because sometimes just seeing the zip code can impact your thinking, and you don't want to be there. You want the best person for the job who's excellent, right? And in the field I'm in, we're servant leaders. So are they willing to get dirty? That's something we talk about out loud in interviews, and certainly with people who are querying us. If we need to be in the garden today, we're in the garden. If we need to knock on doors, can we do it? It's very hands-on. It's not behind the desk. And so that's a different filter. Do people see themselves differently? How much are you willing to work to make your company be its best? And I think that those kinds of questions then eliminate the bias in a lot of ways, because it's then just about the work and can we get it done?
So I guess with that, Lori, Michelle, panel, I appreciate all your guys' time during this past hour and a half. It's definitely been very informative and honestly inspirational for me as a man to kind of look forward and see how we can both include both women and people of color in our future hiring practices. So with this, we'll end the panel discussion, and I'd like to thank all you guys for your time and input to the panel, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of DataCon LA 2020. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.